Alrighty, how is everyone doing today? Welcome to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. This is an educational channel, and we get into theories, concepts, and discoveries that you are probably not familiar with, things that are off the beaten path and that don't get a lot of coverage, and in many cases are flat out suppressed. These are also things that you have to dig for. Um, you might not be able to find a video on it. You might have to read the book. Um, anyway, this is a segment we have that is called the Q-tip of the spear, and we look at the cutting edge. We cover the cutting edge of the InfoWar. The various patriots, anons, diggers out there that uh, provide what I feel is the best analysis, or maybe I just listen to you at random one day. Um, I've been uh, talking endlessly about the fact that the Patriots are in control and they are going to win, and the other team is circling the drain. The globalists and the Satanists and the um, deep state, and it's going to be glorious to watch it, but you shouldn't watch it too much because you got to get yourself redeployed. There's an implementation phase that has to be taken care of, and your implementation game is weak because you haven't gone over your beliefs, values, heroes, rituals, religions, you know, ideals, in with the same type of scrutiny that you've given to the conspiracy theorists and the hoaxes and the false flags out there. And so you got to clean up your game big time before you get started. And I would start with your belief systems. As you have probably noticed by now, everything is a psyop. You know, you thought that, this such a thing really happened, and you thought that this really happened. And, you do the digging on it and you figure out that it's, a CIA, op, or, some deep state type of thing, a media hoax or spectacle. And it turns out that the same is true the farther back you go in history. It doesn't make a difference how far back you go. It's still endless amounts of psyops and misdirections and amplified messaging and all kinds of different forms of deception for psychological purposes, primarily InfoWar purposes. And this is very true of Christianity. The New Testament of the Bible, it was a psyop that was written by the Romans. And that has been demonstrated pretty hard by several authors out there, especially Joseph Atwill in his book Caesar's Messiah, Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, Michael Menescot's in his book Christianity's Origin as a Flavian Secrecy Cult. Um, they've really pinned down um, how they did it. And it was a psychological operation against the Jews. They had been occupying Judea for over 100 years, but especially since 6 AD, when they basically took over control over the ruling of Judea. And the Jews were constantly revolting and insurrecting. And this culminated in this war that broke out in 66 AD. Took the Romans really 7 years to put it completely down. And the new Roman emperors came in, and they were veterans of the war, and they wanted to make sure no type of war like that happened again. And so, they took advantage of the Jewish Messiah legend out there for uh, the Jews were literally waiting any day on a Messiah to rise up and overthrow the Romans. So instead, the Romans made up the story about a Jewish Messiah who was deferential to the Romans and, believed in rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's and walking the extra mile and turning the other cheek and being a prince of peace, while at the same time castigating the Jews and being super critical of the Jews. And then Paul does the same thing, but even more pronounced. And so it's definitely, you definitely smell a rat when you read the New Testament, because it doesn't ring true. That's not what a Jew would do. And but I think, and so these are things that the truthers, anons, and diggers out there need to scrutinize. I think a place to start also is the Dead Sea Scrolls, that were discovered in 1947, but that were dug out. That were documents that are, these are written in Hebrew and Aramaic as opposed to the New Testament, which is written in Greek. And I find it a kind of a stretch for people like Barbara Thiering. Now I gotta get her argument together, but how can she equate the writers of the Dead Sea Scrolls who wrote in Hebrew Aramaic with the Greek writers of the New Testament? And so, especially when she employs this Pesher technique, which is kind of like this really solipsistic kind of technique where you read ancient prophecies and you project them to right now. Like, this prophecy doesn't matter when it was made or what context it was made in. It's really talking about right now. Um, so she's really saying that there's a religious level of the scriptures in the New Testament, but that there's a deeper level that is the actual historical events, which are encoded and have to be revealed by this technique. Um, Now, the Romans may have used the Dead Sea Scrolls as their source. Now, the Dead Sea Scrolls, a lot of them are old biblical texts, the oldest extant of copies of the Book of Isaiah or Genesis or whatever. But those are less interesting than the sectarian material, which is like this sect of a very aesthetic, disciplined, um, pious Jews who lived there in this monastery in Qumran, about 20 miles from Jerusalem, and they wrote a number of texts that are specific to their sect, like one that's called the Community Rule, and one that's called the Temple Scroll, the War Scroll, the Hymn of Thanksgiving, and these are, and also some Pashers, the Habakkuk Pasher, and these are um, like specific to this group, and uh, there is throughout these sectarian documents, there are like really two or maybe three characters. One is the teacher of righteousness, and he's kind of like the hero of the story. And then there is the wicked priest, and then there is the man of the lie, who some people say those are different people, and some people say that they are the same people, the same person. but it's whatever the rival of the teacher of righteousness, but he used to be the associate of the teacher of righteousness, but broke away from him and now advocates a kind of a more relaxed approach to the discipline and the asceticism, not so strict, not so Jewish. And so Thiering really says that the teacher of righteousness is actually John the Baptist, while the wicked priest or the man of the lie is Jesus. So, you know, um, that's another area that you might want to look into. But um, I think the Romans might have used those. It's very difficult to figure out the relationship of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gospels. And so that is kind of what I'm trying to unlock here, um, decode. Anyway, uh, just giving you a little bit of background information. Like, share, subscribe, comment, contribute, and come back tomorrow for another episode of the Q-Tip of the Spear. Thanks for tuning in today, and have a great day.